there's a loss that needs to be realized, right? There's an excessive amount of borrowing from our future that has happened here in America and globally, and there's not enough growth to pay it back. I think we are in the early innings of a bull market. I've been on record saying, now not to toot my own horn a little bit, but I think in all the media I've done earlier in the year, I said, I think 2024, we end around 100K, and 2025, I think 250 to a million, and in that range. And I know that's a big range, but anyone that's been in Bitcoin for a while can appreciate kind of where I'm coming from there. Man, you're telling me I'm gonna live on Bitcoin, I'm gonna have to pay the government so much in taxes. But what you realize is Bitcoin is taxed as capital gains. So you're only paying tax if you have a capital gain, which means if Bitcoin goes up in price since you acquired it, meaning that you can either pay the government a fraction of your capital gain, or you can pay the ultimate tax, which is just being debased by sitting in the currency that they print. And that was an aha moment I had, which is paying a capital gain is a good thing because it means I made money.
Mallers identifies a critical problem: the unsustainable levels of global debt relative to GDP. Governments have borrowed excessively, far beyond what economic growth can support. This borrowing has created a looming loss that must be realized somewhere, whether through inflation, devaluation, or by shifting the burden to bondholders. He describes the current economic dilemma as a game of musical chairs, where no one wants to be left holding the depreciating assets. Mallers points to signs like BlackRock's increasing interest in Bitcoin as evidence that institutions are beginning to seek alternatives to bonds. He interprets such moves as a recognition of Bitcoin's high upside potential and its ability to act as a hedge against systemic risks. This paradigm shift aligns with his long-term bullish outlook for Bitcoin, predicting its price could reach $100,000 by 2024 and potentially $250,000 to $1 million by 2025.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
To me, Wall Street's getting it. But what does getting it mean? Does getting it mean that they all ditch bonds? Well, then no, not yet, but kind of. More so than they were 2 years ago. I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. It's that whether you look at domestic debt to GDP, global debt to GDP, there's a hole, that there's a loss that needs to be realized, right? There's an excessive amount of borrowing from our future that has happened here in America and globally, and there's not enough growth to pay it back. And so who's going to realize that loss, right? Like, governments have been spending excessively on stuff and overpaying for it. The growth in the production from the spending hasn't computed. And so there is a loss that needs to be marked down and realized somewhere. And the game is like a game of musical chairs. Who's realizing the loss? Is it the collective populace through inflation? Is it the wealthy elites through bonds? Like, who's losing? Because if money is time and energy in abstracted form, you can't just like throw it in the trash and erase it from your computer. It's a real loss that has to be realized somewhere. Someone has to lose. And so what I think is happening is those that own treasuries and bonds and these instruments that haven't been performing are starting to wake up to the reality that they might be the losers, and they want to de-risk that. So that's my opinion, and that's what I see. Like, when I see BlackRock selling their IBIT product, that's what I'm reading between the tea leaves is, hey, this is something in your portfolio that is not necessarily correlated to all the other things, that has high upside, that's pro-technology, but, you know, a place to almost de-risk yourself from owning these bond things. I think we are in the early innings of a bull market. I've been on record saying, now not to toot my own horn a little bit, but I think in all the media I've done earlier in the year, I said, I think 2024, we end around 100K, and 2025, I think 250 to a million, and in that range. And I know that's a big range, but anyone that's been in Bitcoin for a while can appreciate kind of where I'm coming from there. And so I'm excited about the strategic reserve. I'm excited by the fact that there's an underlying bid in the bond market for Bitcoin. That's another way to translate, what Saylor's doing. And I think this becomes a $5 to $10 trillion asset fairly trivially in the next 12 months and could very well play a role in stabilizing American deficits. So I don't know. I used to in the past, I'm really excited about this Lightning Network feature. I'm really excited about launching in this country. For me, I'm just excited to be an entrepreneur in America right now. I see a reversion to the means of what's real in many aspects of life. People were eating Beyond Beef burgers at one point and saying that was healthy. And now everyone's like, well, wait a second, let's just all eat ribeyes, right? People were talking about how government spending excessively was a really good thing. And now all of a sudden there's Doge and there's people like, wait, we should probably just buy some Bitcoin, right? And so I see a reversion back to reality, a reversion back to being governed by the laws of Mother Nature, a reversion back to capitalism and to building and innovating and supporting entrepreneurship in America, leaning back onto the ideals that founded this country. And so I feel really grateful and excited to be 30 and healthy and an American citizen that founded a company in Bitcoin where I think we're going to see a lot of growth and I can service a lot of customers. Inflation isn't CPI. Inflation is measured differently. Wait a second, the dollar only goes down. Wait a second, why do I own any? Wait a second, why don't I only own Bitcoin? Wait a second, why don't I run the Michael Saylor playbook personally, which is dollar-denominated debt to own more Bitcoin? Wait a second, I have a life hack and my checking account goes up 63% a year for doing nothing but being smart. Man, you're telling me I'm going to live on Bitcoin. I'm going to have to pay the government so much in taxes. But what you realize is Bitcoin is taxed as capital gains. So you're only paying tax if you have a capital gain, which means if Bitcoin goes up in price since you acquired it, meaning that you can either pay the government a fraction of your capital gain, or you can pay the ultimate tax, which is just being debased by sitting in the currency that they print. And that was an aha moment I had, which is paying a capital gain is a good thing because it means I made money. Now, the fact that I have to share my profit with the government, we can have ethical and philosophical conversations about that all day long, but I'd rather share some of the gain with the government than get debased entirely and watch my wealth and hard work be inflated away.
Mallers asserts that it is in their best interest to adopt Bitcoin. He notes that Bitcoin's decentralized and fair distribution aligns with democratic ideals, contrasting sharply with the inequitable bailouts and interventions of the past. By embracing Bitcoin, governments can invest in an asset that supports fiscal stability while empowering the public. Mallers critiques any government decisions to sell Bitcoin, labeling such actions as monumental mistakes. Instead, he advocates for policies that position Bitcoin as a cornerstone of national financial strategy. One of Mallers' most striking points is his comparison of historical economic announcements. He recounts key events, such as Nixon's removal of the gold standard in 1971 and the 2008 bailouts, as defensive measures that undermined public trust in free market principles. In contrast, a government-backed strategic reserve of Bitcoin would represent a positive, proactive step forward. Supporting Bitcoin, according to Mallers, is not just a financial move, but a cultural and ideological affirmation of freedom, innovation, and opportunity.
The facts are Bitcoin's the best performing asset. It's the hardest asset of all time. It's the scarcest asset of all time. And over the last 15 years, if you've parted with Bitcoin, you've been wrong. And so as government, I think it's in our financial interest to own this thing. And I've gone on TV recently and made the pitch that I also think it's pro-technology, it's pro-growth, it's pro-freedom. But just from a fiscal standpoint, I think the US government right now is in the business of owning things that are hard, owning things that go up, owning things that can back our future promises and our deficits, and starting to work on our fiscal situation. So it doesn't surprise me that this administration might be dumping. I don't know, is it maybe out of spite? It gives me a lot of comfort that I don't have to convince them of anything. I could use Bitcoin on my own merit, on my own terms. That's part of the real groundbreaking innovation, is I don't need to go march outside the White House and say, stop dumping stuff. I could just open my phone and hop on the Bitcoin standard myself. But I do think if they are selling Bitcoin, I think it's a monumental mistake that hopefully the next administration corrects, which they claim they will. But no one should be selling Bitcoin. And if you have in the past, you've been wrong, unfortunately. The Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, in my opinion, is one of the biggest economic announcements to come out of the United States of all time. I think it's on par with Nixon in 71. What I think is different is that it's positive. And I really want to hang my hat on that one, in that the US made a really big economic announcement in 1933, but what was it? It was that we're confiscating all your stuff and we're going to really threaten the idea of property rights. They made a really big one in 1971, but what was it? It was, we're divorcing ourselves from the gold standard. We're not going to be governed by the laws of Mother Nature and the physical realities of the universe. We're going to be able to print money. They made a really big one in 2008, and what was it? Is we're going to bail out a lot of the mistakes on Wall Street and correct the wrongdoings and not let the free market and the business cycle complete. If we make an announcement in 2025 and lean into Bitcoin, it's not defensive, it's not reactionary, it's progressive. It's positive. To me, supporting Bitcoin is pro-technology, it's pro-innovation, it's pro-freedom. I think Bitcoin carries a lot of the American ideals that the country was founded on. It's equal rights, equal coming and going, equal and opining. There's rules with no rulers. It's land of the free, home of the brave. It's where dreams come true. It's where you migrate towards to have future prosperity and a future you can believe in. And that's my messaging to the public and to the government, is this is the most pro-American money we've ever come across. And it's pro all the ideals that I consider American and why I want to be in this country. I think that it will help aid all of the issues that active 30-year-olds, my friends and my peer class deals with in closing the deficit, strengthening the balance sheet of our country. And it will give me a lot more confidence in raising my future kids here. And so I think it's well worth getting that rhetoric out and that messaging out, and just drawing the contrast to that economic announcements in this country have been defensive and have been against the best interest of the public. And we're talking about an economic announcement that is addressing problems, arguably the biggest problem we have, aiding towards the quality of life. Like, let's get something straight. The governments around the world only own 2-3% of the outstanding supply of this asset. So who owns it? The public, the people. So it's an asset that acts in the best interest of the public, that everyone has access to. Satoshi Nakamoto did not go to Goldman Sachs and say, hey, I created a new money, I'd like to take it public. It wasn't uneven fair distribution. He used mining, he used proof of work to make sure that the public and the people have access to this asset. So for all of those reasons, I think the US government supporting this is not only acts in my best interest as a Bitcoiner, and I think acts in their best interest in regards to the deficits. I think it's very pro-American and addresses all of the fundamental issues that all of us Americans are feeling. All of us 30-year-olds are like, I'm never going to be a homeowner. I'm never going to be a dad. I'm never going to exit debt. And whatever KPI and metric you care about to subscribe yourself to that thesis, listen, divorce rates are going up. At one point, life expectancy was going down. Suicide rates are going up. I mean, obesity rates are going up. What human KPI would you correlate to a degrading society? And I think all of this is a function of broken currency, broken money. And I think the US supporting new technology that addresses that, and the fastest growing technology on our balance sheet, is just pro-America. So I'll end my rant there, but I think that's been my stance, and I think it's well worth the energy and the time to be vocal about that.
Mallers extends his analysis to societal issues, linking economic instability to declining quality of life metrics such as rising divorce rates, obesity, and mental health challenges. He attributes these problems to the consequences of broken currency systems. In his view, Bitcoin offers a remedy by restoring fairness, enabling long-term planning, and fostering economic empowerment. The decentralized nature of Bitcoin ensures that it remains accessible to everyone, further solidifying its role as a pro-technology, pro-innovation, and pro-freedom tool. For Mallers, Bitcoin embodies the ideals upon which America was founded: equality, opportunity, and progress. By integrating Bitcoin into the national economic framework, the U.S. can address its deficits, enhance the quality of life for its citizens, and lead the world in adopting transformative technology.
Please like and subscribe my channel.